So I rewatched the OC season 1 and it was interesting. Definitely different from what I remembered. When the OC premiered in 2003, I was 13 and at least in Poland, it aired around 3 p.m, which meant I had to absolutely rush home from school just to watch it. Like many of my peers, I was obsessed with this show. I couldn't wait to hear the theme song and discover new indie bands thanks to their performance at the bait shop. Many of you might not realize how limited access to new music was at the time. We didn't have streaming services, YouTube didn't even exist back then. Most people still listened to music on CDs as the MP3 players were expensive, and by the way, this is how you can tell Seth was a rich kid, because he had an iPod. MTV no longer played music videos, so really one of few ways to discover new artists was through this teen drama. But I guess the main reason why the OC became so iconic wasn't just the music or how quickly it burned through so many wild storylines, but because of the strong and aspirational relationships between the characters. The father-son relationship between Sandy and Ryan, the brotherly bond between Ryan and Seth, yeah, I think we can skip that one. And the overall theme of how sometimes people choose their family and they become just as close as their biological relatives. However, rewatching this show exactly 20 years after its initial release made me realize how much product of its time it really was. The time when naming a boat after a person one never talked to was considered adorable and not creepy at all. As a Gossip Girl fan, it is also pretty difficult for me not to acknowledge how Josh Schwartz, the showrunner of both the OC and Gossip Girl, literally copy-pasted so many archetypes and plot devices from one show to the other. So let's get into it. The OC premiered on August 5th, 2003 to nearly 7.5 million viewers in the US. The plot has a very simple premise. Ryan Atwood is a teenager from the wrong side of the tracks who gets arrested for stealing a car. Sandy Cohen, a public defender who rose from humble beginnings, gets him out of jail. However, Ryan's alcoholic mother kicks him out of their house, Ryan has nowhere to go, and so Sandy decides to bring him to his own home. As they are driving in Sandy's BMW, the landscape is slowly changing and we are realizing that Sandy must live in a pretty affluent community, which happened to be the city of Newport Beach. Together with Ryan, we are entering this bizarre world where 60-something billionaires date 20-something models, teenagers casually wear Chanel bags to school, and their mothers take yoga Pilates classes. And at this point, we are all hooked and desperately need to know what will happen next. So I don't think it will come as a surprise when I say I just love the pilot episode of the OC. I've watched it an embarrassing amount of times, yes, just the pilot alone, and at this point, I no longer notice any plot inconsistencies, like Ryan smoking, the Cohens having a maid, and the Coopers a golden retriever. Bad acting is no longer bad acting, but the crucial part of this episode's charm. Whenever I rewatch it, I genuinely can't wait to hear Benjamin Mackenzie say, "Seriously?"
Seriously?
It's like Chuck Bass riding a public bus in the pilot episode of Gossip Girl. It makes no sense, but it makes all the sense. When Ryan attends his first charity fashion event, which doesn't happen twice, everyone's noticing this mysterious newcomer.
You're their cousin from Boston, right?
So, you must be the cousin from Boston,
The cousin from Boston thing always made me think of the dinner scene from Titanic, when Jack's lower status was exposed when it turned out that he wasn't from Boston. But maybe it's just a coincidence.
Are you of the Boston Dawsons?
No, the Chippewa Falls Dawsons, actually.
And of course, let's not forget about the greatest line from the entire show, which is,
Welcome to the OC, bitch!
in the interview with Nisha Gopalan, Josh Schwartz said, "When I was in college at the University of Southern California, there were a lot of kids from Orange County there who would always say when people asked them where they were from, the OC. Like they'd throw a little swagger on it, try to act like it was the LBC, Long Beach City, as referenced in many rap songs. These Republican kids trying to make themselves seem cool. Obviously, having Luke say, "Welcome to the OC, bitch," just the absurdity of this water polo playing Abercrombie model throwing that line out there seemed funny. The pilot episode also introduces all the main characters, and this is where it becomes apparent just how similar the concepts of the OC and Gossip Girl really are. Firstly, we meet the Cohens. Seth is this nerdy, unpopular comic book lover who, despite having wealthy parents, is excluded from his peers and is madly in love with a popular girl from his school. Kirsten, Seth's mom, is one of few characters who don't have their Gossip Girl counterparts, and Kirsten's husband Sandy is a kind-hearted, supportive dad who has no business looking that good. The whole community is ruled by Caleb Nickel, a balding multi-billionaire who also happens to be Kirsten's father. Then we have the Cooper family. Marissa is an effortlessly beautiful it girl with a drinking problem, her dad Jimmy commits financial fraud, and her cold and judgmental mother Julie eventually marries Caleb. And lastly, we have Summer, a petite brunette who is Marissa's best friend, and Luke, Marissa's boyfriend. Luke starts season 1 as a douchey captain of a water polo team, then mid-season he gets rewritten and becomes more of a goofball than a bully, and eventually he ends up this season as a himbo who's having an inappropriate relationship with an older woman. Sounds familiar? As Gossip Girl premiered 4 years after the OC, one would think that Josh Schwartz would have perfected those characters, that he would leave what was great about them and change things that didn't work well. And to some extent he did that. Blair is the best example, as her character has way more depth and personality than Summer. But for the most part, the OC characters are just far more nuanced, likable, and easy to empathize with. I find it difficult to dislike even the villains. Like, Julie Cooper is the worst mother ever, she's a total bitch, but she's kinda iconic. While rewatching the first season of The OC, I quickly realized that there are two characters that were pretty misjudged by the public. One of them was treated way too harshly and the other quite leniently. So let's start with Seth. Seth Cohen's character is very much a product of its time. In the late 90s and the early 2000s, film and TV scriptwriters were almost obsessed with creating likable, practically aspirational, nerdy characters. In American Pie 2, socially awkward Sherman, the Shermanator, ends up with Nadia, the hottest girl at school who coincidentally has a thing for geeks. In Napoleon Dynamite, Napoleon's dance routine as a form of supporting his best friend Pedro is such an iconic and heartwarming scene, and don't even let me start with Judd Apatow's teen drama called Freaks and Geeks. So it makes perfect sense that another likable, nerdy teenager would appear on a TV show like The OC. Now, Josh Schwartz based Seth's character upon himself and his experience as a, quote, a Jewish kid from the East Coast coming to the USC. What he didn't expect though was how big of an influence this character will have on pop culture. Seth Cohen has basically made being uncool cool. It is true that in the early 2000s, reading comic books, manga, or even watching anime was considered pretty lame in Western culture. Even Studio Ghibli films were far from being as popular as they are now. Yet there he was, this charming and funny guy on TV who wasn't desperately trying to change his unpopular interests just for the sake of fitting in, which is still very inspirational. Upon rewatching this show now as an adult, I noticed that from the start Seth had so many character flaws that were completely overlooked by the show's fans when the OC originally aired. Just think about it. The fact that Seth didn't have a single friend prior to Ryan's arrival makes little to no sense. Are we really supposed to believe that in this private school there was not a single kid that would share one of Seth's hobbies like indie music, skateboarding, sailing, or comic books? Or at least his hatred towards the school's water polo team? And if so, Seth could also meet so many people outside his school. Like, really, he never befriended anyone during his sailing lessons, or a John Cusack-looking owner of a local CD store? Or maybe Seth not having friends was his own fault.
Nothing, Marissa. I've lived next door to you forever, and you've never done or said anything to me.
Oh my God, you're the one who never talks to me. You think you're so much better than everyone. Hey, like in On the Road? That's my favorite book.
Mine too. I listen to the same music as Marissa Cooper. I have to kill myself.
What is crazy to me is how the show was always self-aware of Seth's flaws, we just never noticed them. There are so many scenes when we can clearly see how self-centered, entitled, and selfish Seth was. When Ryan goes through a traumatic experience with Marissa and Oliver, all Seth wants to talk about is himself.
So, do you want to tell me about your night? Or, since I already heard about it, could we just skip to my breakup with Anna?
When Anna leaves Newport Beach, Seth is convinced it's because of him. When Ryan leaves at the end of season 1, Seth of course makes it all about himself and his feelings, yada yada yada.
You don't get it. Before he got here, I was the biggest loser. This place was hell for me, okay? I can't help him, and I can't even imagine what it's gonna be like here without him.
But the thing is that Adam Brody is an incredibly charismatic actor, and he gave a lot of charm and humor to Seth's character. And in my opinion, this is why we tend to overlook Seth's flaws, because him being the underdog is relatable, he's witty, amusing, and his character serves as a comic relief to the show's heavy drama. On the opposite end of the spectrum of this treatment is Marissa. While researching this video, I was surprised to discover that her character is one of the most hated on the show, which is crazy to me as she has always been my favorite. Plus, many negative opinions of Marissa have a strong misogynistic undertone. People write things like, "Yeah man, she was stupid. Her being a lesbian was hot though, because two chicks kissing is hot. But other than that, she was stupid and annoying." Was Marissa's character in season 1 flawless? No, of course not, because no one is. Not in real life, and certainly not in the world of the OC. Ryan has some serious trust and anger management issues, Seth is self-centered, as we just discussed, and Summer is pretty mean and bratty. Marissa believes in people's good intentions, and therefore she trusts them way too easily, especially when she shouldn't, but so does Seth. They were both raised in this rich, gated community when everyone knows and trusts each other. This is why Marissa was so welcoming to Ryan and later to Oliver, and Seth wasn't at least skeptical of Donnie. So why Marissa is straight up hated for the Oliver plotline, yet I don't see anyone bring up Donnie when analyzing Seth's character? I think it's called double standards. If you have ever wondered why the scriptwriters of the OC paired Marissa with Ryan, the reason is contrast. Unlike Marissa and Seth, Ryan is distrustful of people because of his traumatic upbringing. He is very mature for his age. When we see him taking care of drunk Marissa in the pilot episode, we automatically know that this is something he must have done a lot in his life. However, as his life circumstances are changing, he gets adopted by the Cohens and gains a new, supportive family, he starts to flourish. He tries to stay away from trouble, opens up emotionally to others, and most importantly, is no longer alone with his problems. On the other hand, even though Marissa has a family, it only looks perfect from the distance. Her mother is cold and judgmental and puts way too much pressure on her daughter's appearance. Her father is very immature, and even if he means well, he doesn't really know how to emotionally support his daughter. Actually, both of her parents don't even know how to talk talk to her, and honestly, they aren't even trying that hard. So there is this stark contrast between Ryan, who gains love and support from his new family, and Marissa, who, because of her parents' inability to love, becomes more and more alone. So it's natural that she would search for love and meaningful connections with people outside her family. And just because she had a poor judgment of people, it doesn't mean she deserved to be so hated online. Overall, I really enjoyed revisiting season 1 of The OC. It definitely brought back a lot of memories of a teenage me sprinting home from school simply because I was so invested in the whole Summer, Seth, and Anna love triangle. The soundtrack made me feel nostalgic. Not so much the fashion, although it was incredibly authentic for the early 2000s. I really liked that Marissa wasn't yet just a damsel in distress, and her character was given much more depth and substance than in future seasons. Ryan's culture shock was a good character arc, the Caleb drama was amusing, as well as pretty much every scene with Julie Cooper. That having said, season 1 also had plenty of dead-end stories which should either be further explored, like Luke's dad being gay, or Marissa's psychotherapy, or completely cut out, like Rachel trying to seduce Sandy. What was even the point? Please let me know which TV show I should revisit next. I was thinking about either The New Girl or Girls. And don't you worry, the SATC rewatch videos will be back. I just needed some vibe change and sun since it's winter in Switzerland. As always, thank you so much for watching. Bye!